In 1905, a young patent clerk sat alone in a small apartment in Switzerland. No company, no fame, no powerful network, just notebooks, silence, and long, uninterrupted hours of thinking. That man was Albert Einstein, and in a single year, he developed ideas that would completely change physics forever. What's interesting is not just what he created, it's how he worked. Because history's greatest thinkers rarely lived in constant urgency. They protected something else: mental depth. Today, most people lose that depth before the day even begins. Notifications, scrolling, noise, speed. Modern life trains the brain to react constantly. But the people who get more done than everyone else operate differently. Not because they have more motivation, but because they understand the hidden psychology behind attention, energy, and focus. And once you understand these patterns, productivity stops feeling chaotic and starts feeling controlled. The cognitive gate. Most people think productivity starts with effort. It doesn't. It starts with what enters your mind first. Your brain has something like a mental doorway, and whatever enters that doorway early shapes the speed of your thinking for hours. Fast content creates fast attention. Slow thinking creates deep attention. This is why many successful people protect the first hour of the day obsessively. Not because morning routines are magical, but because early input becomes mental momentum. When Warren Buffett spends hours reading quietly every day, he's not being productive in the modern internet sense. He's controlling cognitive pace. That's different. Most people overload the brain immediately after waking up, and then wonder why focus feels impossible later. But deep thinkers understand something most people miss. Attention has texture. And once your brain adapts to chaos, clarity starts feeling boring. Attention, residue, one of the biggest hidden destroyers of focus, is something psychologists call attention residue. When you rapidly switch between tasks, part of your attention stays trapped in the previous activity. Meaning, even after moving on, your brain hasn't fully moved on. That's why modern productivity often feels fake. People are constantly active, but mentally fragmented. And the dangerous part is, fragmentation feels normal now. This is why many elite performers work in long, uninterrupted blocks. Not because they're disciplined machines, but because deep focus requires psychological continuity. A great film director doesn't stop every 3 minutes. A scientist doesn't pause every 5 minutes to check notifications. Depth requires immersion, and immersion requires protection. So instead of managing time, high performers protect cognitive continuity. That's a completely different game. The recovery ratio. Most people measure productivity by output, but high performers often measure it by recovery. Because the brain does not operate like a machine, it operates in cycles. And the people who sustain high performance for years understand this deeply. Look at many elite entrepreneurs, athletes, and inventors. They often walk, think quietly, disconnect, or disappear from noise completely. Not because they're avoiding work, but because recovery protects thinking quality. Even Nikola Tesla used long walks to process ideas mentally, because some of the brain's best connections happen during low stimulation. Modern people rarely experience that anymore. The brain is constantly consuming, and a constantly consuming brain eventually loses clarity. This is why silence feels uncomfortable to many people now. Their nervous system has forgotten how to slow down, but the people who get more done than others usually think slower before they move faster. So the hidden psychology of people who get more done isn't really about hustle. It's about protecting the brain from fragmentation, protecting attention from noise, protecting energy from overload. And once you understand that, you stop chasing shortcuts. You stop looking for endless hacks, and you begin building something far more powerful, a mind that can think clearly in a distracted world. If you want to master deep focus, modern productivity, and psychological performance, subscribe to Max Harrison. Because here, we don't just study success. We study the systems behind how exceptional people think.